This is a little talk on a cylinder head that I am dismantling completely. I'm going to discard. As you can see here, this is a cylinder. This particular one, the valve had impacted the piston, and as you can see, it completely destroyed the cylinder head. Now, a couple of things to point out on cylinder heads. This is a Mark 1 cylinder head, and you can tell that it's a Mark 1 by this number 30. Mark 2 cylinder heads start with, if I'm correct, 88. So as you can see, I've been stripping this one down because it's scrapped, but I am taking it apart. Now this is the left hand head, as you can see, and you'll notice that this is a cam and there's an L for left hand, so you can at least identify the cams. A couple of things that I've removed all the studs. Now I have a Mark 1 Stag, and the interesting thing is, just point that out, is when I noticed I had my cylinder head repaired, these studs are actually the same length, but on my one, my 71 Stag, the ones that go and go through all the way to the cam covers are actually longer. But later Stags, they were all the same length, so it doesn't really matter. But I did notice some of them do have a little different shape on the top compared to the others, so I think the ones with the slight chamfer are the ones that go onto the cam covers bolt holes, all those cam cover nuts. Okay. Now the way people measure if a head is good, you actually get they say in the Triumph book, is get a ball bearing, put it in here, and then put a caliper between the face and this ball, and that's how you can measure if it's being skimmed. However, I feel, not that I'm an expert, but if you look at this flange, the gap here, this gives an indication of how much meat is taken out. Now, the annoying thing is with a Stag head is that when you have it resurfaced, it's very difficult to put in a jig, because how do you know it's 100% perpendicular or whatever? Because of this funny angle. I think a 90 degrees, is it 45 degree angle? I think it's 45 because it makes a 90. So if you look carefully on this particular head, two things. It was put back together, and you'll notice that this valve is actually sticking out beyond the face of the head. So this head is, whoever did this had no clue what he was doing. And so this was US. And also another thing is, if you notice this, retain this angle here, I don't know if you can see this thickness between the bolt hole and this one. This is really, really thin. So you can tell the head was not machined flat. It was machined flat, but not perpendicular, I would say, to maybe the exhaust manifold that it should be. Okay, another thing pointing out is these little things that are inside the cam buckets. They're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I used a pair of pliers to pull them out, but I just was thinking, if you have one of these, this is an anchor, a concrete anchor. You could potentially get a right size one, push it in the hole, and then pull it out, and hopefully you don't have to mile the this little, whatever it is, sleeve. So that's something. I'm going to remove the valves for this. Some time back I posted a question, and one kind fellow said that I found this on one of these Amazon sites or Harbor Freight. You can buy something like this for $20, and I asked, is this something that someone's used? And nobody wanted to admit it but one person, who sort of IM'd me separately and said, yeah, he did use it. But as you can see, this is a head that it's more or less scrap. And I'm going to be taking the valves out just for the sake of it. And I don't really need to, but I've taken the shims off the valves and, then I'll just toss it out. Anyway, that's just a little chat on cylinder heads. Nothing really useful, not really doing too much on the Stags these days since they're running. Well, I won't say that I have a brake issue which I'll resolve, but since I have Stag number 1 that I'm running, which is here, I will just use that. Something else I wanted to point out, the manifold holes, typically I think they're very light. I think 16 pounds or something. People put helicoils in them. You want to be careful you don't go all the way through, because it can penetrate the wall. So you want to be super careful, and you want to make sure these holes are perpendicular. Not sure what happened there, but you can get an idea. Some people have trouble getting these back on the cylinder heads. You may use thin head gaskets or regular ones. They're your choice. Some people still prefer pan. So the water flows, actually, when you get a leak, it flows through this point here. But it's your choice. Sorry, just one more thing. These cam buckets at the end, they typically leak. People say that the new aftermarket ones are pretty crappy, and so they are sealed in or something. Fortunately, I have a genuine paint set on my one, and this was pretty strong. But yeah, these things are poor quality, so people just use some sort of a sealer on them. I took the end cap off. I don't know if you can see this big gunge that was added on here. A very poor rebuild, and that's why it failed on its maiden voyage. So you'll notice that the guide has completely gone. That completely disappeared. The guide fused itself to the valve. So this is my cheap $20 valve compressor. Seems to work pretty well. I was able to, now I just need to pull those little collets out. But give you an idea, you don't have to spend $200 on a valve compressor. This will do well. Seems to work okay. So this is the valve that came out. Using this valve tool. Basically, there's this thing here, and this, oops, drop that, and then that goes on there. That goes on the top of this. There's the collets to hold that in. This is the little shim for the tappets, which, if you got tappet noise, you basically have to take the whole cam off. That sits in there, and then the cam bucket sits on top, and that's how the whole thing sort of goes up and down. So if you ever do your valves, I wouldn't recommend taking it apart, but you can at least see what the valve spring sort of part looks like. Okay. So a little bit about the valve compressor tool that I have. You'll see that the sizes are 30, oops, sorry about that, 30, 25. What I found is the 30 doesn't really sit too well. You need something slightly bigger, but I used the smaller one. It sort of sits, would have been nice if it completely surrounded the but if you get a metric one, maybe that will work. But as I said, the 30 is a bit too small, but hey, it works for a one-off job. Just be careful with it, you should be okay.